This is big breaking news. Multiple major announcements have just been made by Trump and the Trump administration. We are now seeing announcements for potential strikes from the U.S. military inside of a new country, land strikes, and we are also seeing brand new sanctions just announced as well too. We're going to dive into all the details here and see the repercussions potentially. We could see potentially prices go up on certain items from these sanctions. Let's get into all the details here. You can see Trump just made this announcement that the US military is going to potentially start striking a foreign country inside of their land. All right, so they've been doing strikes in international waters. Now there might be strikes inside of a foreign country's border. And we also have these new sanctions being announced from the Treasury Department. You can see here, this is effective October 22nd, 2025. It says Treasury sanctions major Russian oil companies and calls on Moscow to immediately agree to ceasefire. All right, so we're going to dive into all this. I want you to listen to Trump really quick, though, talking about the U.S. military strikes.
Legal authority if they do come. Legal authority if they do come.
Yes, we do. We have legal authority, right? We're allowed to do that. And if we do by land, we may go back to Congress. But we have, this is a national security problem. They killed 300,000 people last year, these drugs coming in. They killed 300,000 Americans last year, and that gives you legal authority. We have a national security, really, I will say this. When you look at the people we're dealing with, and we know them, we know the people coming in, we know the boats, we know everything else. We're allowed to do it. It's in international waters. If we don't do it, we're going to lose hundreds of thousands of people. Now, they'll be coming in by land a little bit more because they're not coming in by boat anymore. There are no boats in the water. There are no more boats. We know the boat almost immediately. You know, it's pretty unusual when you see somebody with a fishing rod and 5 engines on the back of the boat. You know, you don't need that to go fishing. Wait. And we will hit them very hard when they come in by land. And they haven't experienced that yet, but now we're totally prepared to do that. We'll probably go back to Congress and explain exactly what we're doing when we come to the land. We don't have to do that, but I think, Marco, I'd like to do that. You may respond to that if you want.
Well, I mean, the question is, bottom line, these are drug boats. If people want to stop seeing drug boats blow up, stop sending drugs to the United States.
But does it matter if it's in the United States?
Well, these are all in international waters. The boat.
Do a strike in the United States, or if Northern
Well, that's a different matter. Now you're talking about a law enforcement matter. In this particular case, there are people traveling on international waters headed towards the United States with hostilities in mind, which includes flooding our country with dangerous, deadly drugs. And they're going to be stopped. And that's what's happening. And in the case last week, you saw there was a submarine. It was a submarine. It was a submersible. That's a drug boat all the way through. We know what these boats are. The president just said it. We track them from the very beginning. We know who's on them, who they are, where they're coming from, what they have on them. You know, if you're running drug boats, you're in grave danger.
And drug usage is way down. And drug usage coming from the sea, they call it ocean drugs, a little term that they use, the ocean drugs, is very close to non-existent right now. I wouldn't want to be in one of those boats heading away. You know, they're driving happily to destroy the lives of people, and they end up, that's the end of them. So the ocean drugs and the sea drugs, drugs by sea, they call it also, that's almost down to nothing, as you can imagine. So they continue to come in by land at a little bit less because they see something is going to happen. They don't like it. They see something, and they're right. Something very serious is going to happen. The equivalent of what's happening by sea. And we're going to Congress just to tell them what we're doing, just to keep them informed. But we have to do it for national security. We have to do it to save lives.
All right, so you heard that there. Trump is saying that he's going to talk to Congress to get authorization, or maybe not even authorization, I'm not sure exactly, but at least notify Congress for any type of strikes, most likely in Venezuela. All right, there's been authorization too for forces inside of Venezuela to use lethal force on Maduro, the leader. Okay, so this is getting very serious, and they are talking about installing this woman in Venezuela that won the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, so they're going to remove him and install this other woman who won the election apparently, and Maduro is kind of like the contested winner here, like slash, gang leader here. And this is the plan they have, right? I don't particularly agree. I'm not a big fan of this, sending in U.S. military into these dangerous situations. But something definitely does need to change with the trafficking situation into the United States, okay? And on that front, especially in international waters, there's actually a precedent for this in history. One of the first uses for the Navy was even to defend the U.S. ports and coastal waters against any type of pirates or thieves or anyone like that. Okay, so this is something that's actually been done in the US for hundreds of years, where we use our military forces to take out these smaller boats. Okay, so a lot of these things, and especially in international waters, they have a lot of leeway. Okay, and they can see they know these routes and everything, these trafficking routes, and they can see a lot of times the substances inside the boat. And even Marco Rubio was mentioning how these submersibles are on these trafficking routes too, and nobody's traveling on these submersibles on these drug trafficking routes, right? So it's one thing for international waters, but now they are talking about actually striking inside of Venezuela, most likely with drones or even with missiles from planes. All right, so this is getting serious. This is almost a new war. Okay, so let's hope it's not dragged out or anything like that, because it seems like Trump's gonna do it. So you can see here, this was also announced on Trump's Truth Social. You can see here it says new sanctions have been announced on multiple different major Russian oil companies. The main ones, Lukoil and Rosneft oil companies, have been sanctioned. So any type of Western or any country that is selling oil, processing oil, being in touch with oil from these companies can potentially be sanctioned and potentially have their funds tied up, be blocked from accessing bank accounts, things like that. And this could potentially create holes in the oil market, at least short term. We could potentially see shortages in certain areas, most likely not in any Western countries, especially not in the US, because they don't even buy Russian oil. But maybe some European countries or China especially is heavily dependent on Russian oil, but they will most likely just fill in the gaps and get a discount on the sanctioned oil, because China doesn't really respect or care about Western sanctions most of the time. So they will probably just get a discount on this oil, and Russia will most likely just dump it onto them. All right, so that is a big hit to the Russian economy, though, and it's a big hit to Europe and a sign to them too, because they've still been heavily dependent on Russian oil. They cannot cut the ties. Even in the midst of this war, they're still buying lots of Russian oil. Okay, this is also heavily directed at India as well too, because Trump has been trying to put pressure on India to not buy Russian oil because once again it's funding their war machine, and Trump wants to put pressure on Russia to get this war to end. All right, let's listen to Scott Bessent on this really quick. And you can also see, just talking about these boats as well too, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, he also announced that they hit another vessel. Okay, so this is happening almost daily now, maybe multiple times a day. We don't even know exactly how many times a day or how many boats they've actually hit. And he's saying these vessels have been operated by designated terrorist organizations. All right, so that's how they are taking these boats out. That's under the classification that they are doing it. But let's listen to Scott Bessent here kind of explain his position on these new Russian sanctions and what's going on with them.
As you know, and the world can see, President Trump is the president of peace. He's done peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and part of the peace deal, the real remaining final conflict in the world, this would be the ninth one that he has found a solution to, would be between Russia and Ukraine. President Putin has not come to the table in an honest and forthright manner, as we'd hoped. There were talks in Alaska. President Trump walked away when he realized that things were not moving forward. There have been behind-the-scenes talk, but I believe that the president is disappointed at the where we are in these talks. So either this evening or first thing tomorrow morning, we are going to be announcing a substantial increase in Russia's sanctions. I'm not going to give you the exact sanctions, but I can tell you that this will be one of the largest sanctions that we have done against the Russian Federation.
All right, so you heard that there. The Trump administration and even Trump himself has been frustrated with these talks. Trump was even saying that he believes, he has a good talk with Putin every time, but then there's never any real results. All right, he was saying that earlier today in a White House interview. Okay, so I think they are trying to find new ways to put pressure, but this is also something that's previously happened under the Biden administration, these oil sanctions. I think these are a little more intense, but just being honest here, it really didn't seem to work against Russia, these sanctions. I think they respond more to just power, okay? So we will see what this does. I think this is more targeted towards India and Europe, though, to stop supplying money to Russia, right? And we've also seen multiple oil depots in Russia be hit, right, over the past 24 hours. Let me try to find this for you guys really quick. Or not in Russia, but Russian oil processing plants. Okay, so the main refineries in Hungary and Romania were just hit, right? And these refineries are owned by Russia and by Lukoil, the same companies that were just sanctioned. All right, you can see here, this was just posted. It says, within a few hours apart, Hungary's largest oil facility and one of Romania's largest oil refineries burst up into flames. The Hungarian MOL's facility receives the majority of its oil from Russia. Meanwhile, the Romanian Petrotel Lukoil refinery is owned by Russia. And they're wondering if this is an attack or just a coincidence. Okay, this could potentially be an attack from Ukraine or someone else. And actually, someone from Ukraine, okay, a Ukrainian spy / soldier, was arrested for the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline. Okay, but the judge decided to just let them go. Okay, so, and leave the country. I believe he was arrested in France. This just happened in the past 48 hours. Okay, so people are speculating maybe this was another attack on a oil refinery. Right, two different ones that are major Russian hubs. One of them owned by Lukoil, which is the same company that was just sanctioned. Right, you can see here Lukoil down at the bottom in bold. Right, which are designated sanctioned companies. So people are speculating. I'm not saying that's what's happening, all right? It could be a coincidence legitimately, but at the same time, we do see these big refinery fires and explosions happen quite a bit, right? The Chevron explosion happened in southern Los Angeles a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. And that accounts for a major percentage, 40% of the jet fuel to LAX, and also I believe 25 to 30% of the oil for Southern California. All right, so a lot of these major refineries have been going offline. It could be a coincidence, but it also could be potentially something else. Okay, do you also remember that United States military weapons facility? Okay, it was essentially like a bomb making facility where they make dynamite, TNT, explosive powder, landmines, all these things were made here, and this entire facility exploded and blew up maybe a few weeks ago, a month ago as well too, right? Inside the United States. These things keep happening. It could be a coincidence very well, but at the same time it's 2025. We have, updated safety measures, and for some reason these things keep happening, right? So let me know what you guys think down below. Just make sure you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up, just in case whatever happens. Okay, we could potentially see retaliation from these events. We could see, sleepers activated, things like that inside the United States, these groups, if, some type of war does break out, whether it's in Venezuela or things escalate between United States and Russia or even China. Just be prepared, be ready, be stocked up. I hope you have big blessings for your life and your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.